Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. On this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place in the territory of Ukraine. And this night we got the first confirmations of the results of Russian missile strike against Zhytomyr area. The Russians were targeting the Ukrainian ammo depot that located in the Zhytomyr area, and as a result of that attack, the entire ammo depot was destroyed. On this video you can see the results and the explosion that took place in that warehouse. As you can see, the explosion was very heavy. Wagner forces and Wagner continue training military exercises with the Belarusian forces. This is probably the third or fourth days of such exercises, and something tells me that Belarusian forces and Wagner's are preparing themselves before something very important. And the thing is that today we got the information about the type of forces of Belarusian forces who are currently trained, who've been trained by the Wagner forces, and this is the 38th separate storming brigade of Republic of Belarus. So the Wagners trains the stormtroopers of Republic of Belarus. Now we're moving to the situation on the ground, and first we're going to start with the Reho with the Bradley Square. Also, this night we got another video of another cemetery of Ukrainian armored vehicles. As you can see, there are 3 Bradleys and 1 T-64 tank. I believe that this is not these armored vehicles wasn't destroyed like this night. Probably they were destroyed a few days ago, but today we just got the video from another angle of results of fierce fightings on the eastern side, in eastern bridgehead, eastern flank of Robotyne bridgehead. Also, the Russian source reported that during the previous night of the local time, the Ukrainians made at least 2 attempts to attack the Russian positions. And mainly the Ukrainians were attacking the Russians in direction between Verbova and Robotyne. These are 2 fortifications, and there are like 2 forces that's like 2 Russian forces responsible for different 2 bridgeheads. So the Ukrainians are trying to attack between the Russian forces, between Verbova and Robotyne, and between the forces of 24th Motorized Brigade and 70th Motorized Brigade. The Ukrainians launched their attack at 4 a.m. of the local time. The Russians started artillery attacks against the offensive forces, and later at 9 a.m. of the local time, the Russians reported about another second wave of attacks. So probably the first wave that took place at night was repelled, and at 9 a.m. the Ukrainians launched another attack using 2 tanks, 3 Bradley, and around 70 soldiers. For now there are still heavy clashes, and I believe that in a few hours we're going to receive more updates about the results of those clashes. Now we are moving to Vremivka tactical bridgehead. The Russians published more details about the Ukrainian attempt to attack Staramayorske. For example, on this video we see how the 2 personal carriers of Ukraine entered the northern part of the settlement. One of the carrier was got in minefield and was destroyed. The destiny of the second one is unknown. Furthermore, the Russians later published another video, probably how those armored vehicles who entered the north of Staramayorske started their movements in the vicinity of Rovnopol. And on this video we see probably the same light vehicles, personal carriers, and one of those carriers got in minefield as well. So basically the Ukrainians started their attack using 3 personal carriers. One of the personal carrier was destroyed at the beginning of the road, and the second one was destroyed in the northern part of Staramayorske. The destiny of third one is unknown, but as I understand, the Ukrainians after heavy losses took a decision to step back. But the interesting part of this piece of news is that this is probably the 3rd or 4th attempt of the Ukrainian side to enter the northern part of this settlement, Staramayorske. And the thing is that, as you can see, there are no problems for the Ukrainians to enter the northern part. So as I understand, the northern part of this settlement currently is located in the gray zone. It's not like in the gray zone because of the Russians were forced to step back as a result of fierce fightings. I believe that the Russians took a decision to use the northern part of Staramayorske as an ambush territory. Every single interception of road, every single street, every single building and house is under fire control, and I believe that the Russians have already targeted their artillery system to know exactly how to attack, when to attack, and which direction to use to attack. So every time the Ukrainians entered the settlement, the Russians know exactly where to attack, and this leads to significant losses from the Ukrainian side. Basically, the Russians just stepped back to the southern and to the eastern part of the settlement, and they just allowed the Ukrainians to enter the northwestern part, and as soon as the Ukrainians enters the northwestern part, the Russians start bombing and shelling, and we saw the results of those Ukrainian attempts to enter. And some of them, of Ukrainian vehicles, of course, always got on some mines or minefields. Also, the Russians published this week a lot of videos with Lancet strikes. If you remember, this week the Russians published a video how they completed production of another portion of Lancet drones. There was thousands of them. Probably those drones were delivered to the front line, and the Russians started usage of them massively. Today, for example, we got the video how the Russians destroyed another artillery system of the Ukrainians in the vicinity of Shakhtersk. The artillery system that Ukrainians were using to supply their forces during the storming operation of Staramayorske. When talking about Donetsk Frontline, we haven't received any updates, any fresh update during the night. No updates about Krasnogorovka, Mariinka, Konstantinovka. I believe that the Russians managed to save their positions after the Ukrainian attempts to counterattack, and currently the Russians continue their regrouping before the next wave of another push in direction of Krasnogorovka, Mariinka, and of course in direction of the northern part of Avdiivka. And now we are moving to Klishchiivka. We got also a lot of updates from this bridgehead. The Russian sources claims that during the previous night during the previous 24 hours there were at least 10 successful attacks of Lancet, but we got just 3 video confirmations. One of those video we have already saw, and another 2 took place in Klishchiivka area. For example, on this video we see how the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian artillery system that Ukrainians were using to support their infantry during offensive operation in Klishchiivka, and as a result of Lancet strike, that artillery system was destroyed. Another Lancet system the Russians were used for attacking the Ukrainian engineering equipment. As I can see, the first stage of offensive operation in direction of Klishchiivka has ended, and now the Ukrainians started moving their engineering equipment as close as possible to the combat line for, as I understand, for creation of some kind of fortifications. More and more updates we start receiving from the combat line from the Russian side that Ukrainians sometimes prefer not to attack right now, but to create their own fortifications. As I understand, the Ukrainians during the previous weeks lost a lot of manpower, lost of forces, and now they understand that they need to be they shouldn't risk so much. They need to prepare fortifications, strongholds before the next wave of attack, because if they are not planning, or they're not going to create the fortifications, and if the Russian counterattacks, there is a very high chances that Ukrainians will be forced to step back towards Chasov Yar, Pritichno, Stupachki, and that Ukrainians can lose every single square meter that they managed to capture during the previous weeks of counteroffensive operation. Furthermore, the Russians reported that also at 4 a.m. of the local time, the stormtroopers of 57th Brigade replaced the forces of 5th Brigade, 3rd Brigade, and continue offensive operation in direction of Klishchiivka. And this is a very important piece of news, because during the previous weeks, the previous days, the main forces that were storming and attacking Klishchiivka from the northern part, from the northwestern part, from the western part, were the forces of 3rd Assault Brigade Azov, 80th Air Assault Brigade, 22nd Mechanized Brigade, 5th Assault Brigade, and 24th Separate Battalion Aidar. And during the previous days, those brigades and forces had a lot of losses, significant losses to tell the truth. And as you can see today, we got report that 57th Brigade replaced those forces and started offensive operation in direction of Klishchiivka. If we take a look at the deployment map, 57th Brigade at least used to be located in the vicinity of Grigorievka, and that was their main area of responsibilities. They were focused in direction of Orekho-Vasilievka, Dubovo-Vasilievka, Berkhovka, but probably as a result of heavy losses, the Ukrainians were forced to redeploy some battalions and parts of Ukrainian forces of 57th Brigade to the south to help the offensive forces of the southern flank to complete the mission of Klishchiivka. The Russians confirms that there are very fierce fightings for Klishchiivka, and we can say, and I can feel It's not like my opinion based on the facts, but I feel, according to the mood of Russian soldiers on the ground who gave us reports from this area, that there is a very high chances that today or tomorrow the Russians will be forced to step back from Klishchiivka because of very heavy clashes. If the Russians are able to hold on another day, maybe they will be able to hold this bridgehead, but the chances are very high. Also, the Ukrainians continue their counter-artillery duels, and today the Ukrainians published the video how they destroyed. This is the second video confirmation of usage GDAM bomb, guided Ukrainian bomb, that was sent to the Ukrainians by the United States of America. If you remember, the first one usage was a little bit to the north. This is the second usage. There was a Ukrainian drone who was correcting the GDAM bomb, and as you can see, as a result of that usage, according to the Ukrainians, the Russian headquarters of some forces was destroyed. So the thing is that that means that the Ukrainians do have possibility to use guided bombs, at least in the vicinity of Artyomovsk. And the question I have: where is the Russian air defense forces? Where is the Russian aircraft, storm destroyers, and so on? Maybe the Ukrainians managed to suppress Russian air defense forces in this area, because this is the second usage during the week of guided bombs by the Ukrainian side. And I believe that's it for today. We haven't received any updates from Liman and from Kupiansk, just the regrouping and probably the preparation before the next wave of attack. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.